I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me and showing up, and so many people have interest in what I have to say, and that's really, really cool. I want to talk about a transformation that's on all our minds. It's this AI transformation that's come in, and I really was thinking about this late last year, and I was thinking about how do we thrive in this next era. So I created this talk. Caveat on the word senior. I think this is not just people who have senior in their title, but anyone who is more experienced, has some wisdom under their belt, this talk's for you. So as I mentioned, this talk started last year, and I started really pondering this question. Probably from LinkedIn. There's a lot of unhealthy posts on LinkedIn. All the posts about Gen AI were kind of done, and now we were talking about all the AI building that can come into effect. And this came center stage, and it really made me feel insecure. It really made me feel like I had to question, where is my place? So we're going to talk about that. We'll also talk about what I'm calling the AI augmentation paradox. I think it's the central tension between what's both a challenge and an opportunity. And we'll also talk about what this transformed designer will look like in the future. And then finally, we'll talk about some practical takeaways, hopefully in the form of a playbook that you could take with you back to your companies, to your teams, so you could begin to work on your own transformation. A little about me before we start. I'm American, if you can hear my voice. I lived in Amsterdam for a little bit, and now I live in Berlin. I've come from Berlin to come over here and see you. This is my first time in Poland. If you don't want to talk about AI or design with me, you could also talk about snowboarding, running, or the eternal struggles of raising two young kids. I'm also a head of product design at Zalando. At Zalando, I lead a strategic design team. This is for an area called Zalando Marketing Services. In short, this is the area that helps brands become known and loved on Zalando. It's 1 foot in the B2B space and also 1 foot in the customer experience, because if you show an ad, people experience that. So you want to ensure that's tasteful, adds value, and it does something good, not detract from that experience. So where is my place? This is what I was pondering as I saw all these LinkedIn posts coming online. It really was making me feel a bit insecure, as I said. So here's one that says, if you haven't woken up, the 10 to 15 person companies are now doing 20, 30 million in revenue annually. Many of them are bootstrapped. I have a couple takeaways from that if you read between the lines. First, it's kind of amazing types of impact that individuals are having, especially like per head. That to me suggests that the bar, the expectation upon all of us is going to increase. And then the second thing it makes me wonder, or even face as a tough question, is my role creating enough value? I think this means we have to evolve, or we really risk getting left behind. Here's another post on LinkedIn. This one was talking about the most desired or evolution of designer profiles going into 2026. They call out kind of two things. First is the design engineer, the persons that using those making tools from AI, and they deeply understand the business metrics and the impact. Oh, sorry. Design engineer who is building and designing, right? And then there's the growth designer who's just understanding those metrics, the business impact, and ultimately how to create value at that company. For me, this suggests that there are not necessarily new roles that will come out, but it suggests that there's going to be sort of like these new dimensions of skills we're going to have to build some muscle in. Here's another one, similar. This one's from a VP of design, and they talk about design moving upstream towards product strategy and commercial mindset sensibility, answering the question, what is worth building? That kind of blends with product management, so it's an interesting idea. And then the second one is about moving downstream and getting technical, getting more close to the actual product building, the execution. So for me, this suggests that the role of designers isn't going to magically disappear overnight, but the center of gravity of this role is definitely going to shift. I feel it very strongly. Here's another one. Anyone can now use AI to create design artifacts, lower high fidelity. Tools like this let people generate mockups and flows in minutes. That's not a threat, it's the new normal. So if this is the new normal, what does it mean to go beyond the surface then, if everyone's doing this? For me, that means the uniquely human parts. It's synthesizing the research, it's getting the best people into a workshop and facilitating to get that alignment, get the best collective output of all that thought. It's all the critical decision making that ensures what's getting built is the right thing, the most compelling thing. This one was from someone at Google, and I think this was shared quite a lot. But in short, instead of writing business requirements or PRDs, they're going to go into a build-in-first culture of showing people exactly what they mean. So no longer are they going to write 10-page documents. They're going to write a prompt, and then they're going to show people the output of that prompt as some kind of experience. This is really, really a big change for a lot of folks. So I look at these posts, and aside from the anxiety it creates for me, I think we need to read the writing on the wall. So to sum up, more individuals are going to be massively more impactful. Barriers to execution, the time, the cost, and the technical skill, they're all eroding. And new specializations are emerging at the edges of design, like that build-in or answering the question, what's worth making? So this is all a fundamental shift to our role. And I think we're going to see that just more people are going to work, not necessarily without the need for a designer. They're going to be able to fund projects and teams, and those things are going to get designed without designers. It's simply more economical for a lot of organizations that can't afford all the headcount. So this goes back to that question, where is my place? If you're feeling a bit concerned like I am, that's understandable, you're not alone. When I started connecting these dots, it was overwhelming. I spent a lot of time thinking about what will change. And I didn't have a good solution, so I just dove headfirst into this. I signed up for all the AI tools I could spend money on, and I really just decided I'm going to play with this stuff and get comfortable, see what this really actually means. So pretty much from January all the way to now, this is what I've been doing. And I came to the conclusion that this is actually incredibly empowering. What AI does is it's shortening the path towards expertise. So you don't have to have all the expertise yourself. You can go harness the expertise depending on what you're doing. I would actually say that there has never been a time to be a senior designer. It's very, very empowering. Like never before have we had the power to translate whatever's in our head, our vision, our taste, our strategic thinking, and we can translate that into tangible experiences super quickly now. We can bridge this gap between, give me 1 second. We can bridge the gap between the idea and a visceral interactive prototype almost instantly. But to harness this power effectively, I think we need to get to the central dilemma. And that's what I'm calling the AI augmentation paradox. So in short, it goes like this. All the making tasks that we used to own are going to be now ubiquitous. Anyone's doing that stuff now. But when you do that, it also elevates the importance of the designer's strategic thinking, the intuition, the ability to translate those things into tangible ideas. So it gets easier to make things, but on the other side, the more valuable the person becomes who knows what to make. So All our time was spent, not all our time, but a lot of time was spent in the past about making that thing, translating that idea from a sketch or stickies on Fig Jam that represented that idea into a polished design artifact. But what happens when that begins to erode, when that begins to disappear? It's going from hours to seconds. Also, it's becoming economically viable. More and more people are going to be creating stuff. So the value needs to shift into that wisdom of choosing. More people, not just designers, are going to build things. Even your mom, your dad, they can type into ChatGPT and build something. But an ocean of output doesn't automatically mean an ocean of quality. So our experience, our taste, our critical decision skills become the most valuable currency. That is the new senior design craft, I would say. So for a little experiment, I created basically my product in Figma Make. I gave it something like a 30-word prompt, and I just said, like, let's crank this out, let's see how it goes. So within 3 minutes, I had something that wasn't beautiful, but obviously, it's surprisingly decent. It works, it has a logical structure, it has key components, fairly clean layout, it's a coherent start-in point. Within 5 minutes, I can refine that, I can give it inputs, I can fix warnings, I can change functionality. The AI understands and obviously will refactor the code and build a new output. But the thing that's interesting is within 8 minutes, this is like me in between meetings basically doing this, I have something that works, that can articulate ideas. I can show this to people. This has probably 75% of the core functionality of our product on the B2B platform. 2 years ago, this is science fiction. Today, it's less than 10 minutes to make this stuff. So this barrier to translate an idea has effectively disappeared. One of my favorite AI quotes is that this is the worst it'll ever be. For everything that you're doing right now and that you try to do with AI and you get dissatisfactory output, this is the worst it's ever going to be. As AI improves, as it gets more context or can handle more context, there's going to be exponential improvements. So this brings me to a concept that I think is the center of design's impact, and it's called the value execution gap. It's that space between the original initial idea and what ships. It's this gap where either value is realized or lost, and I think it's design's most important job to help businesses or teams or products navigate this. So here it is illustrated. On the left you have the idea. This could be a set of requirements. It could be an idea scribbled on a sticky note. Ultimately, when that idea is realized and it's brought in front of a customer or built or shipped, your intentions of how people want to use that thing still is different than how a customer or a user will perceive that. I think there was a talk that talked about 80%, or it was 8% versus 80% earlier on how much companies think their products are creating value versus what customers say. So there's a real gap here. If we look at an example, there's Booking.com and there's Airbnb. I think everyone knows these products or probably has used them, but the way that these companies have translated this gap is, I think, very different. Booking executes on a relentless, comprehensive, efficient, data-driven model where they're globally aggregating travel and presenting it to the customers. And Airbnb looks at this more aspirational. When they do stuff, it's very brand-led, and it almost feels like when they ship something, they're trying to be disruptive. So both of these companies are massively successful, but they have very different realities in their execution and how customers perceive it. Booking has this fluid line. It's sort of like step by step they're optimizing, and Airbnb is these big, bold steps. And then how this translates into value, One is worth 80 billion and the other is worth 180 billion. So even though they're, at the end of the day, maybe they're doing the similar things, it's very, very different. Now let's also talk about a PM and a designer bridging this gap. I think in the past, both of our collaborations have brought the necessary tension to make a product compelling and successful. But now with AI, both of these people can bridge that gap. A PM can articulate that experience, as you saw earlier in Figma Make. That can be then created as a first prototype or an output. But that's what design used to do. We used to do some of that as well. So I think this is the interesting part about what's happening. I think this is both the challenge and the opportunity going forward. So let's go back to that paradox. We talked about AI will automate the lower level making, and then it elevates the importance of our discretion. That deep user empathy, discerning taste, and foresight to navigate ambiguity, that ensures the path we take leads to the right destination. And I think when we do it, it's not about just making a better looking version, it's about all those things beneath the surface that add up to something that is valuable in the customer's perception. So what does this look like in the future when we are AI augmented or empowered with AI? I don't believe it'll look like a designer wearing augmented reality goggles, but I just love prompting that stuff, so I had to. I think there'll be a few different skills that we're going to be expected to use a lot more all the time in our roles. So I'll talk about those skills in a minute, but first I want to talk about positioning. How you position yourself within an organization is super, super important. A lot of times design is sandwiched between product and engineering in some kind of linear model. I think we need to move to a new positioning where design is more at the center. So I see this as us becoming this central hub, this integrator, really the connective tissue of the product team. We are the ones framing the problem. We need to be synthesizing disparate viewpoints. We need to be translating between the languages of business, technology, and forge a shared understanding and a clear path forward for everyone, for the business essentially. So the transform mandate sort of says we need to be different. We need to be no longer artifact creators. We are that person at the center. We are the catalyst, enabler, facilitator, integrator, prototyper. We need to be all those roles. It's super, super important. But we need to be the spark that makes that a necessity and accelerates the entire business from idea to value. The first skill, I think, the designer in the future, when I think about this profile, is a designer that's often turning to AI to be the business acumen equalizer. I don't think you necessarily need to understand everything. It's about being curious, and that curiosity is going to lead expertise. So you can ask AI to model anything. You could ask it to explain what the business drivers are, given that what you express as your understanding. It will help you contextualize anything when you tell it how much that you understand about that problem space. So it will help you build a quantitative business case. You're no longer just executing on the business case, you can help write it. So, super basic example of curiosity leading expertise. Just say what you want to do and what you want to accomplish and start sparring with that AI. Here you see, use Claude to create a calculator. Typically this would have been done in spreadsheets before, and you'd have to link your cells, do all the formulas. In 30 seconds, you can have a calculator to do whatever you want, to explore whatever relationship you want. Curiosity leads expertise. It's about using AI to ask better questions and explore the opportunity space in an independent and empowered way. I think it's also important to think about AI as the communication enabler. I think most experienced designers have a really good intuition and they have a keen sense of where the product should go. However, we don't always package that idea in the right way to have the right outcome. So, in a way, our communication has been a limiter in the past. But with AI, you can spar with it, you can feed it your rough notes, you can ask it to structure a compelling argument. That same idea packaged differently can lead to dramatically different outcomes. This goes double for anyone not working in their mother tongue. So many ideas fall short just from language barriers. So really turn to AI to really translate those ideas into ways that can be received by others, and it has the highest chance of doing that. Beyond just packaging your ideas, you can also think of AI as a thought partner. So you can work on the business model, and you saw in their previous example. You could also ask it to play devil's advocate and poke holes in your strategy. You can ask it to translate a very high-level strategy into a concrete project plan with milestones. You can even ask it to be your project manager, break this down into like weekly tasks, tickets. It's a tireless, brilliant collaborator, but you need to reinvent how you work with AI. There was another panel talk earlier, and they said they keep 3 different AIs open at the same time. That's kind of what you need to enable yourself to do, is have that really quick path to AI. So this requires you to invest a little bit to set it up in a way that you're going to always use it at a high frequency. Last but not least, we all know AI is a prototyping supercharger. As much as we tell people our ideas now, we can show them precisely what we mean. You can generate 3 different versions of an idea in minutes, and you can bring those to a meeting. You can show this stuff, and you can have a lot more fruitful conversation, much more tangible discussion with specifically what you mean. So this isn't about just presenting a solution to an idea. This is about inviting debate with your stakeholders and really using the tools at your disposal to have a really good debate. So how do we begin to do this? This is where I came up with this Transform Designer playbook. I'm trying to put together some practical things we can start doing. So for that designer that's not doing anything with AI yet, has only dipped their toes in, here's how you get started. So kind of 3 things in this toolkit. We talked about the business and the product mindset. We talked about the communication enabler, the strategy, and we talked about building things or making. I would say just start very, very simply to start this out. Your first week, just get comfortable unpacking business problems with AI. Turn to it 20 times in the next week and force yourself to spar with it and start to understand. Next week, you can do prototyping with AI. Next week, you can start to write and frame thought a little bit better through it. But keep these as separate tasks and stay focused on each one. So for week 1, truly understand and model different scenarios. And if you optimize towards this versus that, if you played this thing up or played this thing down, get comfortable using AI to do that. I think if you sink into a problem space with AI and you're genuinely curious about it, you're going to begin to learn a lot. The next week, I would say, start to build with AI. If you've never used Figma Make or Claude or Gemini or Canvas now, just start making with AI. Instead of turning to Figma and building something, use these tools. Try to direct these tools to build things. I look at it kind of like treating it like an instrument. You articulate your vision, you listen to a little bit of the output, and you start to refine your approaches over the week. For me, I've even started to develop a taste on which AI I'll use for what task, or even put them up against each other, because they're always changing. And then week 3 is this writing and framing thought thing. You can use AI, obviously, to feed in your scattered notes and raw ideas about a complex problem or space. And it could be your sparring partner. If anyone's familiar with coding, there's this term rubber ducking. It's when you're trying to debug something and you just start talking to a rubber duck on your computer monitor. And through that act, you often start to find new discoveries. So I think about using AI in a very similar way. You can express your biggest blocker that you're facing, or have it reframe thought, or try to open up new perspectives. I don't think this is just about organizing your notes. It's about using AI to sharpen your mind on a strategic level and accelerate your ability to influence. So what does this look like when you start to put it in motion? I think of this like a flywheel. You're the designer at the center, and you're regularly flexing into these dimensions of your AI augmentation. And then each capability is feeding into the next to sort of create this powerful effect. When you then begin to overlay your stakeholders into it, you're sort of centering them around these little pools of activity. So if you're working on business and product strategy, you probably are going to work with a lot of go-to-market people, marketing, product managers, analysts, and you can create artifacts, documents, and then you can get them to give input and continue to refine that. You can then also start to circle into your communication capabilities or your AI thought partnership capabilities now, and then that feeds into the next thing of building the refined prototype. So it's not necessarily about doing more jobs, but it's about having more agency. It's about this fundamental shift from being a step in the process to shepherding your business and your stakeholders through it to the outcome. And that's what this transformation, I think, is about. It's not necessarily about whether design is going to disappear or not. It's about you having agency in this decision and about owning your future. So we spend less time on execution, more time on strategy, more time on taste making, and we should try to close this value execution gap. We need to be this essential hub between the business, the customer, the users, and the technical reality. In the future, I don't think your most valuable skill will be doing traditional design work. I think it will be asking the right questions to your stakeholders, to your AI, and to your users. And I think this question still is, how might we? I don't think this will change. It's a great way to frame a question. So never have we been so empowered as individuals. AI is really going to help us. So the biggest threat isn't design. I think it's standing, or isn't AI. I think it's standing still. It's not learning how to use these new skills. It's not getting comfortable turning to AI to spar with it. It's not trying out every 6 months the new model. It's just using your same skill set that you've used before. So my message would be that catalyst. I challenge everyone in this room to go back to your teams and just start one thing from that playbook and start acting like the orchestrator. Engage new stakeholders in your organization, enable them to get their jobs done through your design work, and you can start to be that strategic visionary that this new era demands. I think the senior transformation is upon us, and I truly believe opportunity is knocking. It's never been a better time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for this inspiring talk. And now let's open for the questions. Please go ahead, raise your hand if you have a question. Don't be shy. There is one, and second one as well.
Hi. What you explained to us, for me, it sounded a little bit more like a product manager. So what's the difference in this case between the product designer and the product manager? And do you think there is any?
There's a difference today, but 100% this is getting blurry. I think when I said AI shortens the path to expertise, part of that is shortening the path to that product mindset expertise. So more people that are not of that traditional role can start to do some of those things that that role is strong in. However, I think designers are more fit to bridge the product management gap than product managers are more fit to bridge the gap on design. Yes, they can use Figma, Make, or whatever to generate that experience. But how you bridge that gap matters, as we saw, and the designer is going to close that gap in a lot more crisp way so that when this product is used by customers, it's going to have the intended effect. I think we are much more able to articulate beyond what this prototype just created, and we're able to understand those nuances in a much more deeper way, all the way through to that customer perception. So I don't know if there's going to be product management roles and designer roles. I sort of worry that we're going to be all individualists with our own spiky skills in the future, and that's kind of how an organization is going to be. Everyone's just sort of like doing the dimensions that they do well as part of a team and complementing them, not necessarily adversarial.
Hi, a great talk, by the way. And I wanted to toggle something that has been bothering me for a while. So we're developing things very quickly. We're making new iterations, new designs, something that is absolutely outstanding. But in the same time, we're not reflecting on those things, or it's even incomprehensible to grasp all of that, what's happening on a certain design in a short period of time. What I mean is that us as senior designers will become a historians or somebody who knows why the design is at this point in time and how did it come to here. Because while I recently saw a interface like the time picker from a touch screen on a dumb phone on a Nokia, and I was wondering why is it there. So what's your approach on like keeping why this decision was made to have this context in the future, like a keeper of why is it there? I don't know
if I understand it correctly, in this future where AI is doing more design, how is it going to maintain the context of different design decisions that led up to why this design or solution is the way that it is?
Yeah, that we will become the keeper of the knowledge why we are here and how does it come that this design to be like that. It was made by AI, but we know why.
I think it's an important part of it. And that's probably also that intuition and that nuance when I talk about what do designers add to this process beyond just people prompting interfaces and experiences. I think it is this intuition or this historical context that they add to the solution that enables you to bridge that value execution gap much more effectively than if you didn't have that context. So that's a really great point. Thanks.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much for the inspiring speech. I was thinking when you told us about the prototyping, what if we have existing product and there are lots of screens already exist and we start from zero, right? How do you solve it that maybe if you show it to someone, then they don't really understand the context because it's not the same interface you see?
I see this more like a technical limitation, but it's absolutely true. Like if you want to prompt something, like I recreated my own product, it doesn't look like that in reality, but it captured that functionality in the prototype. I think in the future, we're going to be able to set up our code bases much more appropriately for AI than to do its magic on top of that, knowing that it needs to use the design system or it needs to have certain functionalities, and then we prompt what we want to change about it. But yeah, we're at the very, very early stages of this technology coming about. I think it's become ubiquitous in the last years, just not even that. So this is the worst it's ever going to be.
All right, we have time for more questions. Don't be shy. Yes, there is one.
Hey, like, based on what you're saying, right, it seems like we'll be able to produce more and more ideas and take them farther and farther, right? But still, you know, there's like a limited audience for the things that we can produce, and there's limited amount of things that we can show to people, right? So how do you imagine the process of deciding what to kill and at what stage, as you can, very quickly produce lots and lots of iterations of very advanced prototypes?
Yeah, it's a good foresight because I'm already at that point where I'm getting so much AI-generated documentation and strategy docs, all this stuff. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to consume all that. Aside from using AI to go through all those things, I think we just need to be more, even though it's easy to create these things, we need to be more selective of what we're putting out there for others to consume because they don't have infinite capacity to read all these things or test all these different ideas out. There is an element where AI might be able to evaluate those things. We saw a little bit of it in another talk where you put these variations out into the wild or you programmatically generate these variations and then also you're getting real signals to refine which one gets cut and which one then survives to the next round. So I think it's a problem we're going to have to come across, but I don't have any magic bullet right now.
Two more questions.
Hi. After your presentation, I had this impression that a few years ago we had a renaissance of no-code solutions, that everybody could make their own app. And right now we have no designers' designs, and I have this feeling that a few years ago developers were afraid about their jobs, and now we are in the same point as a designer. So that's just my impression, and I was curious, what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's how this whole talk came. I saw all these posts on LinkedIn, and it became kind of scary. It's like, do I even have a job anymore? Do I create value for my organization? But that's where I started thinking about how we cross this gap. These solutions are always going to be imperfect in some sense that if you're generating them. And I think you still need this human element to come in and more effectively cross that gap than just the machine-generated output. And that still matters, and I think this will matter until the end of time because humans are using the products that we're creating, not machines. So how you design an interface to do a certain job is different than how I do it or everyone else in this room. And yes, there's common patterns, but there's the little value adds that are going to have a little bit more effect towards that business KPI that you're trying to drive, and that still is going to matter when you begin to optimize these things. So maybe, yeah, we're needed less from 0 to 1 in some senses, but I mean, when companies like Airbnb ship something, it's like not 0 to 1 anymore, it's like 10 to 50 or something. I think it will always matter because that's like that differentiator on the business side.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for the talk. I was just thinking about, because I know this talk was about being a senior designer and what the senior must do to grow. And my question is like, I do agree with this. And it was a question from the crowd before about like, what is the difference between the project manager or the product manager versus the senior designer? And I do understand that because I also wondering if those boundaries are getting blurry. Do you still think that there is a place for the junior designers then? Because if everyone can now create really like low fidelity prototypes, which were really valuable at the very beginning, because then we could have an intern or like the junior designer could take this job and help the senior designer who's already working with the business and strategy and etc. etc. Do you really think that there is still a chance for like the junior designers or like those who are now graduating from the schools to become someone in the design world?
Yeah, it's also for engineers, right? Like, I haven't wrapped my head around what's the perfect solution, but I do feel like by my gut that there's always going to be a need for more junior people. They're going to have to dip their toes in and become relevant and figure out how to create value at some level to be employable. But I don't know exactly how that's structured yet. But at a certain point, I'm like 20 years in, I'm going to retire or die or something, right? I need to be replaced, and new people need to come in. So there will be a pathway, but it's maybe not a clear pathway.
All right. One more, the last one.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the answer. Actually, follow up on that one. So, within the teams that you lead and within the organization that you are, how do you foster this culture of designers who perhaps are skeptical, or maybe junior designers who have not yet embraced these shifts that are happening in the industry? Are there some practical steps that you have taken to ensure that they are following through, or maybe some rituals, or I don't know?
I mean, that's who this talk is for. It's for not for the people that are already jumping headfirst in, but the people that are sort of approaching this with trepidation. Within my teams, I'm trying to not make it a requirement. Like, some companies are actually like saying you need to use AI. I don't want to be that company or that person, but I want to foster this shared curiosity about how can we use this tool in an exploratory way to have maybe just a little bit better outcome than we were doing before. So if someone's thinking about a new product opportunity in some part of the area of the product, I would encourage them to diverge in thought, and I would say, like, have you tried sparring with AI yet and come up with 10 possible solutions instead of just the 2 that you're showing right now? It's just finding the little moments where you can quickly turn to whatever LLMs open in your computer and throw in some stuff in there and seeing what comes out. I view it as, like, literally as starting small as that, because that's where I started last year. It's like, I don't know how to do any of this. It's so overwhelming. I'm seeing people on YouTube and Instagram do the craziest AI integrations, and I feel like just an idiot. How do I begin this? And it's just starting small, one prompt at a time, and you get a little more comfortable, and you get a little bit more intuition about what types of tasks arranged in what way with what type of prompts leads to what kind of output that you can begin to capitalize on. But it really is starting small, and there's no playbook for this really other than trying it out. So that's what I'm trying to incorporate in our teams, is just moments where we could play this out, moments where we can share how we did something with AI versus how someone else approached it with AI, and just find out together on this journey of what's working and what's not.